Welcome to a quick sharp review of the PTSD radio omnibuses. This is the complete collection and it's by Masaaki Nakayama. I'm going to be talking a bit about the physical release, the structure of the book. I'm going to be talking about the story within and lastly what sort of music I'd recommend listening to if you're going to read it. PTSD radio has 6 volumes. They're sort of 2 in 1 in each of these. That's all that's been released, and as far as I know, that's all that's going to be released, and I'll explain why in a little bit. Just going into detail of the physical build of these, size-wise, they're slightly larger than a normal manga volume, so slightly higher and slightly wider pages as well, and obviously you can see sort of 2 in 1 length. I actually think that the third one has more pages in it than the other 2, if you can see that there. And then they've got these different spines, which are grey, red and blue here, and then different covers. Now, importantly to note, these covers are the only type of this sort of cover that I've seen on manga. There's details across this that you can all sort of feel. It's sort of like sticking out. I don't know how easily that comes through on a camera, but if you have a look, you can see all these sort of impressions here. It sort of makes it a bit more sort of unnerving with this detailed artwork. And then going through the first few pages, we've got about 4, 5, 6 colour pages in each volume, which is good. Table of contents, which is meaningless. And then the rest of the book, the pages are pretty good quality, I would say. Let's see, probably just like a cut above sort of normal manga quality. I mean, you can see that there's still bleed through, but overall, I don't think it really matters, especially because there's a lot of black in these books. So what is PTSD radio about? Really good question. It's a lot of the chapters are all somewhat related, but a lot of them are unrelated and just related in like some little themes, but largely it's a series of vignettes across these books that are little sort of spooky stories. And I don't know if this is why it's called PTSD radio, but it does have that feeling of tuning into random radio stations and then finding something different and then tuning into something else, because they usually end fairly abruptly with like a little bit of a twist or a little jump scare type thing, with just like some sort of shocking imagery. The story's fairly nonsensical, if there is one, because it is just like as if someone's telling like lots of little scary stories. And I think you should go into it thinking about it like that. Don't go into this thinking you're going to get a really complex story with character development or anything. It's really just like a collection of little scary stories, and some of them are related and some of them aren't. But personally, I enjoyed the read. I just tried to not think about the overarching story, and then just enjoy the nice sort of creepy artwork. I think if you're a fan of Japanese horror, it's sort of a must grab, because there's just so much weird, creepy stuff about like guardian gods and sort of monsters and shrines and curses and stuff, and it's all sort of drawn in this really captivating, cool way, and it sort of just gets under your skin. I'd recommend, I will mention that in the 3rd volume, and it's probably the most interesting part of all of these books, the author starts going into detail about this hiatus he went on because he became unwell, and it's sort of like almost related to the book in some ways, and it sort of gives this vibe that he's been cursed and all these weird goings on that happened while he was writing it. Really creepy, and I found that the most sort of captivating part of the book. Just going through that sort of true story about what happened to him. I mean, again, who knows if it's a true story, but I believed it when I was reading it, and it was interesting enough. So it's worth picking up for that alone. I think it was a really interesting experience to read about his experiences. And lastly, I'd recommend just listening to any sort of horror music when reading this. I'll put a link in the description for one that I read. It's called like a playlist called like Horror Manga Reading or something. It fit perfectly with this. So I'd recommend that. Tell me what you think of these books if you enjoyed them. I know some people criticise them for not being super coherent, but I think if you just go into it treating it like an art project or like someone telling you a bunch of scary stories, then you'll probably have a good time. Anyway, thanks.